The great meeting hall of Kepler's rest station hummed with quiet conversation. 12 different alien species sat around the massive circular table that dominated the room. Each representative wore their finest ceremonial robes and carried the symbols of their homeworlds. The monthly council meeting of the Galactic Trade Federation was about to begin. Ambassador Veltar of the Zephyrian Collective adjusted his crystal headpiece and looked around the room. His people were tall and thin, with skin that changed color based on their emotions. Right now, his skin showed a calm blue-green pattern that meant he was content. The Zephyrians had been part of the Federation for over 400 years, and these meetings had become routine. To his left sat Captain Thexara from the Molten Worlds. Her rocky, volcanic appearance made her look dangerous, but her people were actually quite peaceful. They mined precious metals from lava flows and traded them throughout the galaxy. Her glowing orange eyes scanned a data pad as she reviewed the latest trade reports. Across from them, Dr. Kethmos of the Scientific Union tapped her six-fingered hands on the table. Her gray skin was covered in small, intricate tattoos that told the story of her many academic achievements. She was the Federation's chief expert on ancient civilizations and lost technologies. Her large, dark eyes held a curious intelligence that had helped solve many galactic mysteries. The other representatives included the insect-like hive speakers, the floating gas beings from the Cloud Nebula, and the Mechanical Construct Alliance. Each species brought their own unique perspective to the Council, but they all shared one thing. They had evolved beyond the need for violence and aggression. The galaxy had been at peace for over 600 years. Admiral Zexathera from the Watia Combined Defense Fleet called the meeting to order. Her people, the Starborn, looked almost human except for their silver skin and completely black eyes. They had been the first to achieve faster-than-light travel and had helped form the Federation as a peaceful alliance of trading partners. "Welcome, fellow beings," Admiral Zexathera said in the common galactic language. "Today, we discuss trade. Routes through the Vega sector, the new mining rights on Titan Prime, and the cultural exchange program between the artistic collectives." The first few hours passed as they usually did. Charts were displayed showing cargo ship movements, profit. Margins were calculated, and minor disputes were settled through calm negotiation. The Federation had perfected the art of peaceful commerce. War was something from the ancient past, a dark time when primitive species fought over resources instead of sharing them. During the lunch break, the representatives gathered in smaller groups to discuss less formal matters. This was when the real relationships were built, when species learned about each other's cultures and histories. Ambassador Veltar found himself sitting with Dr. Kethmos and several others near the large viewing window that showed the stars. "Beyond, I had the strangest experience last week," Dr. Kethmos said as she ate from a bowl of crystallized nutrients. "My research team was cataloging artifacts from the dead worlds in the Sol sector. We found something quite unusual." Captain Thexara leaned forward with interest. Her people loved mystery stories, especially ones involving ancient civilizations. "What kind of artifact?" Dr. Kethmos pulled out a small dark object from her research bag. It looked like a piece of twisted metal, but it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "We found dozens of these scattered across 3 different worlds. The material is unlike anything in our databases. It's incredibly dense, but our best scanners can't determine its exact composition." Ambassador Veltar reached out to touch the artifact, then pulled his hand back as his skin suddenly flashed bright red. "It feels wrong somehow, aggressive, like it was made for violence." "That's what I thought too," Dr. Kethmos said, carefully putting the object away. "But that's impossible. No species could develop spaceflight while maintaining violent tendencies. Evolution doesn't work that way. All intelligent life eventually learns that cooperation is superior to conflict." A new voice joined their conversation. "Unless you believe the old legends." They turned to see Elder Morden approaching their group. He was from the hegemony, one of the oldest species in the Federation. His people lived for thousands of years and served as the keepers of galactic history. His ancient, weathered face held the wisdom of countless centuries. "What legends?" Captain Thexara asked. Elder Morden settled into a chair that adjusted to accommodate his massive frame. "Stories that my people have passed down for over 3,000 years. Tales of a species that lived in the Outer Rim territories, in the area you now call the Sol Sector." Dr. Kethmos looked excited. "You mean there's historical evidence of civilization in that region? My archaeological surveys suggested it, but I thought the worlds had been empty for millions of years." "Not empty," Elder Morden said slowly. "According to our oldest records, there was once a species there called humans, but they were unlike any other intelligent life we've encountered before or since." Ambassador Veltar's skin shifted to a curious yellow pattern. "Different how?" "The legends say they were warriors. They fought constantly, not just against other species, but against their own kind. They used primitive weapons that fired solid projectiles instead of energy beams. They built machines designed only for destruction. Most remarkably, they somehow achieved spaceflight while still maintaining their violent nature." Captain Thexara laughed, causing small flames to flicker around her mouth. "That's impossible. Violence and intelligence can't coexist at an advanced level. It's a fundamental law of evolution. Aggressive species destroy themselves long before they reach the stars." "That's what makes it a legend," Elder Morden replied. "According to the stories, these humans were different. They channeled their aggression into exploration and survival. They could live in environments that would kill any other species. Their warships were crude but incredibly effective. They fought wars across multiple star systems." Dr. Kethmos was taking notes frantically. "What happened to them? If they were so advanced, where did they go?" Elder Morden's expression grew thoughtful. "The legends disagree. Some say they destroyed themselves in a final terrible war. Others claim they simply vanished one day, leaving behind empty worlds and strange artifacts. Like the ones we've been finding," Dr. Kethmos whispered. "Perhaps," the elder said. "But these are just stories, passed down through generations. There's no scientific proof that such a species ever existed. Modern evolutionary theory proves that intelligence and aggression cannot coexist at advanced levels." Ambassador Veltar nodded in agreement. "The elder is right. It makes for interesting fiction, but we know that peaceful cooperation is the only path to the stars. The galaxy has been at peace for 6 centuries because we've all evolved beyond our primitive violent instincts." As the afternoon session began, Dr. Kethmos presented her formal report on the Sol Sector artifacts. She displayed holographic images of the strange metal fragments and shared her team's analysis. The objects defied easy categorization and seemed to be made from materials that shouldn't exist according to current scientific understanding. "What's your recommendation for further study?" Admiral Zexthera asked. Dr. Kethmos hesitated. The conversation with Elder Morden had planted new ideas in her mind. "I believe these artifacts warrant extensive investigation. They could represent technology from an unknown civilization that we've never encountered before." Several representatives exchanged skeptical glances. The Federation had explored most of the galaxy over the past millennium. The idea of discovering a completely unknown advanced civilization seemed unlikely. "How much funding are you requesting?" asked the treasurer from the banking guilds. "I would need at least 50 research vessels and a dedicated archaeological team of 200 specialists," Dr. Kethmos replied. The room fell silent. That was an enormous allocation of resources for what appeared to be scattered debris from some long-dead primitive society. Admiral Zexthara looked around the table. "All in favor of classifying these artifacts as pre-spaceflight curiosities and allocating standard minimal funding for basic cataloging?" 8 hands were raised immediately. After a moment, 3 more joined them. Only Dr. Kethmos abstained from voting. "The motion passes," Admiral Zexathera announced. "Dr. Kethmos will receive standard funding to catalog and store the artifacts, but no additional resources for expanded investigation." Dr. Kethmos felt disappointed but not surprised. The Federation had grown comfortable in its peaceful prosperity. The idea that there might be mysteries left to solve, or that the galaxy might hold secrets from a more dangerous past, didn't fit with their ordered worldview. As the meeting concluded and representatives began to leave, Elder Mordun approached Dr. Kethmos privately. "You believe there's truth in the legends, don't you?" he asked quietly. Dr. Kethmos looked around to make sure they weren't being overheard. "I think those artifacts are more than just random debris. There's something purposeful about them, something that suggests advanced engineering. And the material itself, it's like nothing we've ever seen." Elder Mordun nodded slowly. "My people have other stories, ones that aren't widely known. The legends say that the humans didn't just vanish. Some stories claim they're still out there, somewhere in the dark spaces between the stars." "Still alive, after all this time?" "Perhaps. The legends say they were incredibly adaptable. If any species could survive in the void between worlds, it would be them." Elder Mordun paused. "But these are just old stories. I'm probably letting my imagination run wild." Dr. Kethmos gathered her research materials. "Maybe. But I think I'll continue studying these artifacts anyway, even with limited funding. Something tells me they're more important than the Council realizes." As Kepler's rest station prepared for the night cycle, most of the representatives settled into their quarters for rest. The station's artificial gravity and atmosphere were carefully calibrated to accommodate all 12 species comfortably. It was a marvel of cooperative engineering, proof that different forms of life could work together for mutual benefit. But in her private laboratory, Dr. Kethmos continued working late into the night. She ran scan after scan on the mysterious artifacts, trying to unlock their secrets. The metal seemed to shift and change at the molecular level when she wasn't looking directly at it. Her instruments gave contradictory readings, as if the material existed in multiple states simultaneously. As she worked, she couldn't shake the feeling that Elder Mordun's legends might contain more truth than anyone wanted to admit. The galaxy was a vast place, full of unexplored regions and dark spaces where anything might be hiding. She made a note in her personal research log. "Recommend expanded survey of outer rim territories, particularly areas adjacent to Sol Sector. Something created these artifacts, and if the creators still exist, we need to know about them." But, even as she wrote those words, Dr. Kethmos had no idea how prophetic they would prove to be. In the cold darkness beyond the Federation's borders, ancient eyes had been watching the galaxy's peaceful civilizations for centuries. And they were, growing tired of waiting. 3 months had passed since the council meeting at Kepler's Rest. Dr. Kethmos had continued her research on the mysterious artifacts with the limited funding she'd been given. Her small team had cataloged over 300 similar objects, scattered across the Sol sector, each one as puzzling as the first. The strange metal refused to reveal its secrets, and the research had stalled. Then everything changed on a quiet Tuesday morning when the emergency alarm began blaring throughout Federation space. The mining colony on Proxima Centauri B had gone silent. Admiral Zexathara stood in the command center of the Federation's main military station, watching the massive holographic display that showed their territory. Red warning lights blinked where Proxima Centauri B should have been transmitting its regular status reports. The colony housed 12,000 miners from 6 different species, all working together to extract rare minerals from the planet's crust. "When did we lose contact?" she asked the communications officer. 14 hours ago, replied Lieutenant Vextar, a young Zephyrian whose skin was flashing nervous orange patterns. The last transmission was a routine mining report. Everything seemed normal. Admiral Zexthara frowned. Mining colonies had backup communication systems and emergency beacons. For everything to go silent at once was almost impossible. What about the automated distress beacon? That's the strange part, Lieutenant Vexitar said, pulling up audio files. The beacon started transmitting an emergency signal about 13 hours ago, but it cut off mid-message. The Admiral listened to the recording. Static filled most of it, but she could hear voices shouting in panic. Then came sounds that made her skin crawl, loud banging noises that didn't match any known mining equipment. In the background, someone was screaming about ships in the sky. The transmission ended abruptly, with a sound like metal being torn apart. "Send a message to Captain Morden," Admiral Zexthara ordered. "Tell him to take the investigation fleet to Proxima Centauri immediately." Captain Morden was Elder Morden's youngest son, barely 300 years old by hegemony standards. He commanded the Federation's fastest investigation ship and had a reputation for solving mysteries that baffled other officers. His crew included specialists from multiple species, all trained to handle unusual situations. The journey to Proxima Centauri B took 18 hours at maximum speed. During the flight, Captain Morden reviewed everything they knew about the colony. It had been established 50 years ago as a joint mining operation. The planet itself was harsh but manageable with proper environmental suits. The colonists lived in sealed domes connected by pressurized tunnels. "Captain," called his science officer, a crystalline named Zexkala. "We're approaching the colony now. I'm not detecting any life signs." Captain Morden moved to the main view screen. Proxima Centauri B looked normal from orbit, a rocky, reddish world with the colony's domes visible as small white dots on the surface. But something felt wrong. The captain had developed good instincts over his centuries of life, and right now those instincts were screaming danger. "Take us down to the main landing platform," he ordered. As their ship descended through the thin atmosphere, the details of the colony became clearer. Captain Morden had visited mining colonies before, and he knew what they should look like. There should be cargo ships loading minerals, workers moving between buildings, and the constant activity of a busy operation. Instead, they found silence. The landing platform was empty except for scorch marks that looked like nothing Captain Morden had ever seen. The marks weren't from plasma weapons or fusion drives. They looked like something had burned the metal with incredible heat, leaving behind twisted patterns that hurt to look at. "These burn marks," Zexkala said as they suited up to explore the colony. "They don't match any known propulsion system in our databases." The team left their ship and walked across the landing platform. The colony's main dome rose ahead of them like a massive glass bubble. Inside, they could see the outlines of buildings and equipment, but no movement. The airlock to the main dome worked normally, which was the first strange thing. If the colony had been attacked, the attackers would have damaged the entry systems. Instead, everything seemed to be functioning perfectly. Inside the dome, they found the second strange thing. The colony hadn't been destroyed. It had been systematically taken apart. "Look at this," called Dr. Yethmos, the team's archaeological specialist and Dr. Kethmos's younger brother. He was standing next to what had been the colony's main mining control center. "The equipment has been removed with surgical precision. Someone took apart these machines piece by piece and carried them away." Captain Morden examined the empty mounting brackets where heavy mining lasers had been attached. The brackets were undamaged, but the lasers themselves were gone. Whoever had done this possessed incredible technical knowledge and had taken great care not to damage anything unnecessarily. "What about the colonists?" he asked. The team searched through every building in the colony. They found empty bedrooms, with belongings scattered around as if people had left in a hurry. The cafeteria still had plates of food on the tables, though the food had spoiled days ago. Personal items lay abandoned, family photos, children's toys, precious keepsakes from home worlds. But there were no bodies. 12,000 people had simply vanished. "Captain," Zexkala called from the communications center, "you need to see this." Captain Morden joined his science officer at the colony's main computer terminal. The screen showed the colony's final log entries. Most were routine reports about mining quotas and equipment maintenance. But the last entry was different. It was written in a language that their universal translator couldn't recognize. The computer automatically translated this into common galactic script, Zexkala explained. But it says here that the original message was written in something called Terran Standard. Captain Morden felt a chill run down his spine. He remembered his father's stories about the legendary humans. What does the message say? According to the translation, they were warned. The investigation team spent 3 more days examining every corner of the colony. They found more evidence of the systematic removal of equipment and supplies. Food stores had been emptied, medical supplies were gone, and even the colony's backup power cells had been carefully extracted from their housings. Most disturbing were the additional messages they found. Someone had burned words into the walls of several buildings using what appeared to be intense heat applied with incredible precision. All the messages were in the same unknown language, and all translated to simple phrases. Time has ended. The debt is called. We remember. Dr. Yethmos made the most important discovery on their final day. Hidden beneath the colony's main administrative building, he found fragments of the same strange metal that his sister had been studying. But these pieces were different. They looked fresh, as if they had been left behind recently. "These fragments," he told Captain Morden, "they match the artifacts from the Sol sector, but they're not thousands of years old. According to my scans, these pieces were created within the last few weeks." Captain Morden sent an immediate report back to Admiral Zexkala. The implications were terrifying. Someone with advanced technology had attacked a Federation colony, removed 12,000 people without leaving any trace of violence, and left behind evidence that they were connected to the mysterious Sol sector artifacts. When the investigation fleet returned to Federation space, emergency meetings were called on every major world. Representatives from all 12 species gathered via holographic communication to discuss the crisis. "This cannot be happening," insisted Ambassador Veltar, his skin flashing rapid patterns of denial. "The galaxy has been at peace for 6 centuries. We've evolved beyond this kind of violence." Admiral Zexkala shared the investigation report with the assembled leaders. "The evidence suggests that we're dealing with a technologically advanced species that we've never encountered before. They were able to approach a defended colony, remove its entire population, and escape without being detected by any of our sensors." Dr. Kethmos, attending the meeting as the Federation's expert on the Sol sector artifacts, felt a growing sense of dread. "The metal fragments Dr. Yethmos found match my research samples exactly. But if these new pieces are only weeks old, it means someone is still actively using this technology." Elder Morden spoke from his home world via hologram. "I have consulted our oldest archives, searching for any information about the legendary humans. Most of the records were lost long ago, but I found references to something called Protocol 7. "What's Protocol 7? Admiral Zexkala asked. "According to the fragments I found, it was some kind of human military doctrine. The record suggests it involved the complete evacuation of populations from contested territories. The humans would remove all civilians and useful equipment, leaving behind only messages for their enemies." Captain Zexkala's molten features glowed brighter with anxiety. "You're suggesting that the people who took our colonists might actually be these mythical humans? That's impossible. Those legends are thousands of years old." "Perhaps the legends were wrong about one thing," Elder Morden replied quietly. "Perhaps the humans never disappeared. Perhaps they just went into hiding." The meeting continued for hours as leaders tried to process the implications. If an unknown species was operating in Federation space, it represented the first serious threat to galactic peace in centuries. None of their civilizations had maintained significant military forces because there had been no need for them. Admiral Zexathera was tasked with increasing patrols throughout the Outer Rim territories. Captain Mordun would lead expanded investigation teams to search for any signs of the mysterious attackers. Dr. Kethmos received authorization to expand her research on the Sol Sector artifacts with unlimited funding. But as the meeting ended and leaders returned to their home worlds, none of them realized how inadequate their preparations would prove to be. The attack on Proxima Centauri b had not been random violence or simple piracy. It had been a test, a careful evaluation of Federation defenses and response capabilities. In the darkness between the stars, ancient watchers reviewed the data they had gathered. The Federation species had grown soft during their centuries of peace. Their military forces were small and inexperienced. Their colonies were poorly defended. Most importantly, they had forgotten that sometimes the greatest dangers came not from unknown threats, but from old enemies who had never forgotten how to fight. The test was complete. Now the real work could begin. Dr. Kethmos worked late, into the night in her expanded laboratory, studying the new metal fragments with equipment she had only dreamed of having before. The Federation's leadership was finally taking her research seriously, but she wished the circumstances were different. As she examined the atomic structure of the strange metal, she noticed something that made her blood run cold. The material wasn't just advanced, it was adaptive. It seemed to change its properties based on the type of sensors being used to examine it. It was almost as if it had been designed specifically to confuse and mislead anyone trying to study it. She made a note in her research log: recommend immediate defensive preparations throughout Federation space. If these artifacts represent active technology, we may be facing a threat unlike anything in recorded history. Outside her laboratory window, the stars looked the same as they always had. But Dr. Kethmos now knew that somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of space, something was watching them, something patient, intelligent, and very, very dangerous. 6 months had passed since the disappearance of Proxima Centauri b's colonists, and the galaxy was no longer the same peaceful place it had been for centuries. Admiral Zexathara stood before a massive holographic display in the Federation's emergency command center, watching red warning lights spread across their territory like a disease. 17 colonies had gone silent. Each attack followed the same terrifying pattern. Ships would arrive without warning, populations would vanish completely, and valuable equipment would be stripped away with surgical precision. The attackers left behind only cryptic messages burned into walls and scattered fragments of that strange, impossible metal. "Show me the latest report," Admiral Zexathera ordered her aide. Lieutenant Vextar's skin had lost its natural color patterns and remained a sickly gray. The young Zephyrian hadn't slept properly in weeks. The mining station at Kepler 442 went dark 3 days ago. Captain Mordun's investigation team found the same evidence as all the others. No bodies, missing equipment, and messages in that unknown language. The Admiral studied the tactical display. The attacks weren't random. Someone was systematically targeting Federation outposts along specific trade routes, creating gaps in their territorial coverage. It was a strategic campaign being conducted by someone who understood how the Federation operated. Any success with our defensive measures? No, Admiral. We've tripled patrols in the Outer Rim territories and stationed defense fleets at every major colony. But our ships never detect anything approaching the target sites. The attackers appear and disappear like ghosts. This was the most frustrating aspect of the crisis. The Federation's sensor technology could detect a single ship from light years away, but these mysterious attackers seemed to exist outside normal space. They struck without warning and vanished without a trace. Dr. Kethmos entered the command center carrying a datapad full of her latest research. Her gray skin looked exhausted, and her normally neat tattoos appeared faded. She had been working around the clock to understand the enemy's technology. "Admiral, I have new information about the metal fragments," she said. "My team has made a breakthrough in understanding their composition. What have you learned?" Dr. Kethmos activated a holographic display showing the atomic structure of the strange metal. "This material doesn't follow any known laws of physics. It exists in multiple quantum states simultaneously, which is why our scanners give contradictory readings. But more importantly, we've discovered that it's not just metal, it's a form of programmable matter." Admiral Zexathera felt a chill run through her silver skin. "Programmable matter? That's theoretical technology. No known species has ever achieved it." "That's what makes this so frightening," Dr. Kethmos replied. "These fragments can change their properties at will. They can become harder than diamond or softer than silk. They can conduct electricity or act as perfect insulators. Most disturbing of all, they appear to be networked. Each piece can communicate with others across vast distances." The implications were staggering. If the attackers possessed programmable matter technology, they were dealing with a civilization far more advanced than anything in the Federation. Captain Mordun's voice crackled over the communication system from his investigation ship. "Admiral, we have a situation developing in the Vega system. Our long-range sensors are detecting massive gravitational anomalies." "What kind of anomalies?" "Unknown. But they're big, Admiral, really big, and they're moving toward Federation space." Admiral Zexathera felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. For 6 centuries, her job had been mostly ceremonial. The combined defense fleet existed mainly to rescue stranded cargo ships and mediate minor disputes between species. Now she was facing the first real military threat in galactic recorded history. "Captain Mordun, take your fastest ship and investigate those anomalies, but maintain maximum distance and be ready to retreat immediately if you encounter hostiles." "Understood, Admiral." As Captain Mordun's ship raced toward the Vega system, panic was spreading throughout Federation space. Trade routes that had operated safely for centuries were being abandoned. Wealthy colonies were hiring private security forces for protection. Several outer rim settlements had simply evacuated, unwilling to risk becoming the next target. The crystalline hierarchs, known throughout the galaxy for their advanced sensor technology, had deployed their most sophisticated detection networks throughout the outer territories. Their crystal matrices could detect energy signatures across multiple dimensions and identify threats that normal sensors missed completely. That's why everyone was shocked when 3 crystalline monitoring stations were destroyed in a single night. The attack happened so quickly that the stations barely had time to send distress signals. One moment they were scanning empty space, and the next moment they were gone. When Federation investigation teams arrived, they found only scattered debris and more of those haunting messages burned into the wreckage. Elder Mordun called an emergency meeting of the Federation Council. Despite his advanced age, he had become one of their most valuable resources for understanding the crisis. His knowledge of ancient legends was proving more useful than anyone had expected. "I've been researching our oldest archives," the elder announced to the assembled representatives. "The stories about humans contain more details than I initially shared. According to the legends, their military doctrine was based on something called asymmetric warfare." Ambassador Veltar's skin flashed confused yellow patterns. "What does that mean?" "It means they didn't fight fair," Elder Mordun explained. "While other species developed honor codes and rules of engagement, humans developed tactics designed to exploit their enemies' weaknesses. They used stealth, misdirection, and psychological warfare to defeat superior forces." Captain Thexara's molten features glowed with worry. "You're saying these attackers aren't just technologically advanced, they're also strategically superior." "The evidence suggests it. Look at their attack pattern. They're not trying to conquer territory or destroy our military forces. They're systematically undermining our confidence and disrupting our supply lines. It's a classic human tactic called death by 1,000 cuts. Dr. Kethmos had been quiet during the meeting, but now she spoke up with a trembling voice. I've made another discovery about the metal fragments. They contain data storage capabilities, far beyond anything we've ever seen. My team managed to decode some of the information they contain. What kind of information? Star charts, detailed maps of Federation space going back centuries, tactical analyses of our defense systems, most disturbing of all, complete behavioral profiles of every species in our alliance. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Someone had been studying them for generations, learning about their strengths and weaknesses, preparing for this moment. How long have they been watching us? Admiral Zexathera asked. According to the data stamps in the files, some of this information is over 400 years old. They've been observing us since before most of our current colonies were established. Elder, Morden nodded grimly. This matches the legends. The stories say that humans were master strategists who planned their campaigns over multiple generations. They would study their enemies for decades before making a move. Captain Morden's voice suddenly burst through the communication system, interrupting the meeting. His transmission was filled with static and seemed to be coming from an enormous distance. Admiral, this is incredible. They're here. Captain, repeat your transmission. You're breaking up. Admiral, I'm near the Vega system, the gravitational anomalies. They're not natural phenomena. They're ships, massive ships, moving in formation toward Federation space. The communication cleared suddenly, and Captain Morden's voice came through with crystal clarity. Admiral, you need to see this. I'm transmitting visual data now. The holographic display in the council chamber activated, showing the view from Captain Morden's ship. At first, the assembled representatives saw only empty space filled with stars. Then the captain adjusted his sensors, and shapes began to emerge from the darkness. Ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. But these weren't like any vessels in the Federation database. They were angular and predatory, with surfaces that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. They moved in perfect formation, like a school of metallic fish swimming through the void. Most disturbing of all, they were completely invisible to normal sensors. Captain Morden could only see them because he had modified his detection equipment based on Dr. Kethmos' research. Estimated size? Admiral Zexathera asked, though. Her voice came out as barely a whisper. The largest vessels are over 3 kilometers long. But, Admiral, that's not the most frightening part. I'm detecting energy signatures that suggest these ships are designed for one purpose only. What purpose? War. These aren't exploration vessels or cargo ships. They're warships in the truest sense of the word. And, Admiral, they're heading directly for Federation territory. The council chamber erupted in panicked conversations as representatives tried to process what they were seeing. For 6 centuries, the galaxy had known peace. Military technology had stagnated because there was no need for it. The Federation's defense ships were designed to rescue civilians and mediate disputes, not fight actual battles. Now they were facing a fleet that had clearly been designed by a species that understood war better than any civilization in recorded history. Captain Morden, return to base immediately, Admiral Zexathera ordered. All Federation forces are to fall back to defensive positions around our core worlds. Admiral, there's something else. I'm receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's in that unknown language, but our computers are translating it in real time. The translated message appeared on screens throughout the council chamber. It was simple, direct, and absolutely terrifying. You have 30 cycles to withdraw from the Outer Rim territories. This is your only warning. The time of legends has ended. We are coming home. As the message repeated across all Federation communication networks, Elder Morden sat back in his chair with a look of profound sadness. The legends had been true after all. The humans hadn't disappeared or destroyed themselves. They had been waiting in the darkness between stars, growing stronger, preparing for this moment. "Admiral," he said quietly, "I fear we're about to learn why some species choose violence over peace. And I'm not sure our civilized galaxy is prepared for what's coming." The 30-cycle deadline had begun. Somewhere in the dark spaces beyond Federation territory, an ancient enemy was returning to reclaim what they considered their rightful place in the galaxy. And the peaceful species that had grown comfortable in their absence were about to discover that evolution didn't always favor the gentle. The emergency session of the Federation's greatest military minds had been going for 12 hours straight. Admiral Zexathara looked around the command center at faces that showed exhaustion, fear, and confusion. None of them had ever planned for a real war. The concept was so foreign to their civilizations that they barely had words for it. "We need to show strength," declared Admiral Kexthera of the Molten World's Defense Force, her rocky features glowing with determination. "1,000 ships moving in formation. Let these mysterious attackers see that the Federation will not be intimidated." Several other military leaders voiced their agreement. It was the natural response of civilized beings. Meet force with superior force, demonstrate that aggression would not be tolerated, negotiate from a position of strength. But Dr. Kethmos had spent the last few days studying every scrap of data they had collected about their enemies, and she was terrified by what she had learned. "Admirals, I strongly advise against any show of force until we understand what we're dealing with." "Doctor, with respect, this is a military matter," Admiral Kexathara replied. "Your expertise is in archaeology, not warfare." "That's exactly why you should listen to me," Dr. Kethmos said, activating her holographic display. "I've been studying the tactical data embedded in those metal fragments. These attackers don't think like us. They don't follow the same rules of engagement that civilized species use." She showed them charts and graphs that mapped the attack patterns from the past 6 months. "Look at this progression. They didn't start by attacking our strongest positions or making demands. They began with isolated colonies, testing our response times and defensive capabilities. Each attack was designed to gather intelligence about our weaknesses." Admiral Zexathara studied the data with growing unease. "You're saying they've been conducting an intelligence operation against us?" "More than that, they've been training us. Each attack taught them something new about how we respond to threats. They know exactly how long it takes our ships to reach an attacked colony. They know which weapons we carry and how our defense systems work. Most importantly, they know that we're not psychologically prepared for real violence." Elder Mordun entered the command center carrying an ancient data crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Despite his age, he had been working tirelessly to decode more of the human legends from his people's archives. "I've found something crucial," he announced. "Hidden in our oldest memory cores, I discovered detailed records of human military philosophy. They called it total war." "What does that mean?" Admiral Zexathara asked. Elder Mordun activated the data crystal, and ancient text appeared in the air around them. "According to these records, humans didn't just fight against military targets. They attacked supply lines, communication networks, civilian infrastructure, anything that supported their enemy's ability to continue fighting." The assembled officers looked horrified. The idea of deliberately targeting civilian populations was unthinkable to species that had evolved beyond aggression. "That's barbaric," Admiral Kexathera protested. "No civilized species would attack non-combatants." "That's what makes humans so dangerous," Elder Mordun replied sadly. "They never became civilized in the way we understand the term. They maintained their capacity for violence while developing advanced technology. According to these records, they saw war not as a contest with rules, but as a problem to be solved by any means necessary." Dr. Kethmos had been comparing the ancient records with her modern data. "This explains their attack pattern. They're not trying to defeat our military forces in direct combat. They're systematically dismantling our ability to function as a Civilization. She highlighted the locations of the destroyed colonies on a galactic map. Look at these positions. They've created gaps in our communication networks and disrupted major trade routes. Several outer rim worlds are already experiencing supply shortages. They're strangling us economically while gathering intelligence about our defenses. A new voice joined the conversation as Captain Mordun returned from his reconnaissance mission to the Vega system. His normally confident demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled fear. "Admirals, I've completed my analysis of the approaching fleet. The situation is worse than we initially thought." He transmitted his sensor data to the command center's main display. The assembled officers watched in stunned silence as images of the human fleet appeared before them. The ships were unlike anything in Federation records, angular, menacing, and clearly designed for destruction. "How many vessels?" Admiral Zexathera asked. "Over 3,000 confirmed, with more arriving every hour. But, Admiral, that's not the most disturbing part. I managed to get close enough to analyze their technology." Captain Morden paused, struggling to find words for what he had discovered. "Their ships don't just use that programmable matter for armor. Their entire hulls are constructed from it." Dr. Kethmos felt her heart skip a beat. "Their hulls can adapt in real time?" "That's correct. I watched a human cruiser modify its shape while in flight. It went from a sleek exploration configuration to a heavily armored combat mode in less than 30 seconds. They can probably reconfigure their ships for any situation." The implications were staggering. The Federation's military doctrine was based on understanding an enemy's capabilities and developing counter-strategies. But how do you fight ships that can change their fundamental characteristics at will? "There's more," Captain Mordun continued. "I detected massive internal spaces within the larger vessels. These aren't just warships, they're mobile colonies. They've been living in space for centuries, possibly longer." Elder Mordun nodded grimly. "The legends mention this. Humans were said to be the only species that could thrive in the void between stars. They didn't need planets the way other forms of life do." Admiral Zexathara was beginning to understand the true scope of what they faced. So they're not just attackers coming from some hidden world. They're an entire civilization that's been living in dark space. A civilization that's had centuries to prepare for this moment, Dr. Kethmos added. "While we've been living in peace, they've been evolving their technology and refining their military strategies." The 28-cycle deadline was approaching rapidly. Federation worlds throughout the Outer Rim territories were in panic. Some colonies had already begun evacuating, unwilling to wait for official government decisions. Others were hiring private military contractors, though none of the available mercenary forces had experience with real warfare. Dr. Kethmos had made another discovery that chilled her to the bone. Hidden within the data fragments from the attacked colonies, she had found evidence of something the humans called Protocol 7. "It's a systematic evacuation procedure," she explained to the assembled military leaders. "The humans don't just attack and destroy, they relocate entire populations. The 12,000 people from Proxima Centauri b, the miners from Kepler 442, all the missing colonists, they're still alive." "Where?" Admiral Zexathera demanded. "Probably aboard those massive ships we detected. The humans appear to be collecting our people for some purpose." Elder Mordun consulted his ancient records. "The legends speak of this. Humans were said to believe in something called strategic population redistribution. They would remove civilians from contested areas to prevent casualties during combat operations." "You mean they're actually trying to protect our people?" Admiral Kexthera asked in confusion. "In their own way, yes. But it also serves a military purpose. By removing populations before attacking infrastructure, they eliminate our ability to use civilian casualties as a negotiating tool. The Federation's leaders were struggling to understand an enemy that operated by completely foreign logic. How do you negotiate with someone who kidnaps your people in order to protect them? How do you fight an enemy that's simultaneously more violent and more careful about civilian casualties than your own forces?" Captain Mordun received an urgent communication from his sensor operators. "Admiral, we're detecting new activity from the human fleet. They're changing formation and accelerating toward Federation space." "How much time do we have?" "At their current speed, they'll reach our outer border defenses in 6 cycles." 6 cycles. Less than a week before the most powerful military force in galactic history would arrive at their doorstep. Admiral Zex Thara made the hardest decision of her career. Send a message to all Federation worlds. Begin immediate evacuation of the Outer Rim territories. All civilian populations are to be relocated to core worlds within the next 4 cycles. Admiral Kexathara protested, "If we abandon the Outer Rim, we'll lose 40% of our territory without firing a shot. If we don't evacuate those worlds, we'll lose 40% of our population," Admiral Zexathera replied. "Dr. Kathmos is right. We're not dealing with a conventional enemy. These humans think about war in ways that we can't match." As evacuation orders went out across Federation space, Dr. Kathmos continued studying the ancient human records that Elder Morden had discovered. The more she learned about human military philosophy, the more she realized how unprepared the galaxy was for their return. Humans didn't fight wars to gain territory or resources. They fought wars to solve problems. And right now, the peaceful Federation that had claimed their former territory was a problem that needed solving. "Elder Morden," she said quietly, "do the legends say anything about what the humans want? Why they're doing this?" The ancient being was quiet for a long moment, consulting memory cores that contained the wisdom of millennia. According to the oldest stories, humans believed in something they called natural selection. They thought that only the strongest should survive, and they considered conflict to be the natural state of the universe. "So they're attacking us because we're weak?" "No, Doctor. I think they're attacking us because we've forgotten how to be strong. The legends suggest that humans respected worthy enemies, but they had no tolerance for civilizations that achieved peace by abandoning their survival instincts." Dr. Kethmos felt a chill of understanding. "They're not trying to conquer us. They're trying to teach us. Perhaps. Or perhaps they're simply removing what they see as a failed experiment in galactic civilization." As the 6th cycle dawned, and human ships crossed into Federation space, the galaxy prepared for its first real war in over 6 centuries. But none of the peaceful species that had grown comfortable in their prosperity truly understood what they were about to face. The humans were coming home, and they were going to remind the galaxy why some civilizations choose to remain dangerous. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Federation territory like a dark storm materializing out of nothing. Admiral Zex Thara watched from the bridge of her flagship as thousands of vessels appeared on her sensors, angular, predatory, shapes that seemed to devour light itself. She had assembled the largest military force in Federation history. Over 800 ships from 12 different species, representing every advanced civilization in known space. It should have been an impressive sight, but as she looked at the human fleet approaching them, Admiral Zexathara felt like a child playing with toys. The human ships moved with purpose and coordination that spoke of centuries of military evolution. They formed attack formations that the Federation's best tactical computers couldn't predict or counter. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to be studying the Federation fleet with the same casual interest that a scientist might show when examining bacteria under a microscope. "Incoming transmission on all frequencies," reported the communications officer, a nervous crystalline whose usual sparkle had dimmed to barely visible levels. "Put it through." The main view screen filled with the image of a human female. She appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with short gray hair and eyes that held the wisdom of someone who had seen far too much violence. Her uniform was simple but practical, designed for function rather than ceremony. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Colonial Fleet," she said in perfect galactic standard. "You have ignored our warning to withdraw from the Outer Rim territories. We are here to enforce that directive. Admiral Zexthera stepped forward, trying to project confidence she didn't feel. I am Admiral Zexthera of the Federation Combined Fleet. The territories you claim belong to peaceful civilizations that have lived there for centuries. We will not abandon them to unknown aggressors. Admiral Chen's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Unknown aggressors? How quickly the galaxy forgets. These territories were human space long before your Federation existed. We're not invaders. We're coming home. The human species disappeared over 3,000 years ago, Admiral Zexthera replied. Any historical claims are meaningless after so much time. Disappeared? Admiral Chen actually smiled at that, though there was no humor in it. We didn't disappear. We left. When the galaxy decided that peace was more important than strength, that cooperation was superior to competition, we chose a different path. Dr. Kethmos, monitoring the transmission from the Federation command ship, felt pieces of the puzzle falling into place. The humans hadn't been destroyed or evolved beyond recognition. They had been offered a choice between joining the galaxy's peaceful civilization or maintaining their aggressive nature, and they had chosen exile. We've watched your Federation for centuries, Admiral Chen continued. We've seen how you've created a galaxy of sheep, creatures so afraid of conflict that you've forgotten how to defend yourselves. You've bred the survival instinct out of your species in the name of peace. We've created a civilization based on cooperation and mutual prosperity, Admiral Zexthera countered. We've eliminated war, poverty, and suffering throughout known space. You've eliminated challenge, growth, and strength, Admiral Chen replied. You've created a galaxy of beings so comfortable in their safety that they can't even conceive of real danger. Tell me, Admiral, when was the last time any of your species faced genuine adversity? The question hung in the space between the two, fleets like an accusation. Admiral Zexthera realized that she couldn't answer it. The Federation had been so successful at creating peaceful prosperity that none of their species had faced real challenges in generations. We don't need adversity to thrive, she said finally. Don't you? Admiral Chen gestured, and new images appeared on the view screen. They showed Federation colonies during the recent attacks. Panic, confusion, complete inability to respond effectively to threats. We took 17 of your colonies without losing a single ship. Your people scattered like frightened animals at the first sign of danger. Is that the thriving civilization you're so proud of? Captain Mordun, commanding one of the Federation's fastest ships, watched the exchange with growing understanding. The humans weren't just militarily superior. They were philosophically opposed to everything the Federation represented. What do you want? Admiral Zexthera asked. We want our space back, Admiral Chen replied simply. The Outer Rim territories, from here to the galactic edge. Every world that was once human space, we're reclaiming. And the people living there now? We've already relocated them to safety. Unlike your civilized species, we don't slaughter civilians to make a point. But we won't allow weaklings to inhabit worlds that require strength to survive. Admiral Zexthera felt anger rising in her chest. You call us weak, but you're the ones who ran away when faced with the choice to evolve beyond violence. Admiral Chen's smile became genuinely amused. Evolved? You think abandoning your survival instincts is evolution? Admiral, we've spent 3 centuries in the void between stars, surviving in environments that would kill your people in minutes. We've maintained our edge while you've grown soft. Which of us is really more evolved? The first shots of the battle came without warning. The Federation fleet had been expecting formal declarations, negotiation periods, or at least some kind of countdown. Instead, the human ships simply opened fire when Admiral Chen finished speaking. But these weren't the energy weapons that Federation forces were trained to counter. The human ships used kinetic projectiles, solid chunks of matter accelerated, to incredible velocities. The Federation's energy shields, designed to deflect plasma beams and laser pulses, were completely useless against physical impacts. 3 Federation cruisers were crippled in the first volley before their crews even understood what was happening. "Return fire!" Admiral Zexathara ordered, but her ship's responses seemed pathetically inadequate. Their precisely aimed energy beams struck the human vessels and simply dissipated harmlessly. The programmable matter hulls adapted instantly, becoming perfect absorbers for whatever type of energy hit them. Captain Morden found himself in the middle of a battle unlike anything in galactic history. The Federation ships fought like they were participating in a formal duel, maintaining formation, targeting military systems, trying to disable rather than destroy. The human ships fought like apex predators, coordinating attacks that targeted weak points and exploited every tactical advantage. "They're not just fighting our ships," Captain Morden reported over the communication network. "They're fighting our supply lines, our communication relays, everything that keeps our fleet operational." This was the difference between civilized warfare and total war. The Federation forces were trying to win a battle. The human forces were trying to eliminate their enemy's ability to continue fighting. Within 2 hours, Admiral Zexathara realized that her impressive fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy that understood conflict better than any living species. Her ships were faster and more numerous, but the humans fought with a coordination and ruthlessness that her people simply couldn't match. "Admiral," her tactical officer reported, "we're losing ships faster than we can repair them. At this rate, the entire fleet will be combat ineffective within 6 hours. Admiral Zexathara made the hardest decision of her career. "All ships begin immediate withdrawal to the core worlds. This is a strategic retreat, not a surrender." But Admiral Chen had anticipated this response. As the Federation fleet tried to disengage, human ships appeared behind them, cutting off their escape routes. They had been surrounded without even realizing it. "Federation forces," Admiral Chen's voice came over all communication channels. "Stand down and prepare to be boarded. Any ship that attempts to flee will be disabled and its crew relocated for their own safety." Admiral Zexathara looked around her bridge at faces filled with shock and defeat. In less than 3 hours, the most powerful military alliance in galactic history had been completely outmatched by a species they had believed to be mythical. "Admiral," her communications officer said quietly, "Admiral Chen is requesting to speak with you privately." The view screen activated again, showing Admiral Chen in what appeared to be her private ready room. Her expression had softened slightly, showing something that might have been sympathy. "You fought well, considering," Admiral Chen said. "Your people have courage, but no understanding of how to apply it effectively. What happens now?" Admiral Zexathara asked. "Now you learn. The Outer Rim territories return to human control, as they should have remained. But this doesn't have to be the end of the Federation. You can continue to exist in the core worlds, trade with each other, maintain your peaceful civilization, under human supervision, under human protection. There are threats in this galaxy far worse than us, Admiral. Species that would gladly exterminate your peaceful civilizations for resources or sport. We've been keeping them at bay for centuries while you lived in ignorant bliss." Dr. Kethmos, listening to the exchange from her research vessel, felt a final piece of understanding fall into place. The humans hadn't just been hiding in dark space. They had been serving as unacknowledged guardians, protecting the galaxy from threats that the peaceful species couldn't even imagine. "What's the price for this protection?" Admiral Zexathara asked. "Simple. Stop trying to spread your philosophy of weakness to species that choose strength. Let the galaxy develop naturally, without forcing everyone to conform to your ideals of peace. Some civilizations are meant to be warriors, and that's not a flaw to be corrected." Admiral Chen stood up, preparing to end the conversation. "You have a choice, Admiral. Accept that the galaxy is big enough for different ways of life, or continue to insist that everyone must conform to your definition of civilization. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Zexathera alone with her thoughts and the wreckage of her assumptions about how the universe worked. 6 months later, Dr. Kethmos stood in her new laboratory on the edge of human territory, now serving as the Federation's first official ambassador to the Terran colonial fleet. The arrangement was uncomfortable but workable. The Federation maintained control of the core worlds and continued their peaceful trade relationships. The humans controlled the outer rim and served as an unofficial military shield against external threats. Most importantly, the galaxy had learned a crucial lesson. Peace was not the absence of strength, but the choice not to use it. The humans had reminded them that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe was something willing to remain dangerous in service of a greater good. As she reviewed updated star charts that now marked vast regions as human territory, protected zone, Dr. Kethmos wondered what other forgotten truths might be hiding in the unexplored depths of space. The galaxy was far stranger and more dangerous than the Federation had ever imagined, and she suspected that humanity's return was just the beginning of a much larger awakening. Outside her laboratory window, human patrol ships moved silently through the void, watching for threats that peaceful civilizations could never hope to face alone. They were legends that had become real, guardians that the galaxy had never known it needed. And in the darkest reaches of space, where ancient evils stirred in response to the changing balance of power, other legends were beginning to wake up.